Hello and welcome to Cryptic's video guides. Today we're going to take a look at walled-in buildings, probably one of the most discussed and hated things in backyard monsters. First here we just have a very common example where the pebble shiner is right in the center and the monsters chew. Here are 9 examples where the only difference is that I moved the twig RG one block for each little clip. And somehow that drastically changed how the monsters path. Sometimes they're willing to go around the walled-in buildings, another times they'll just chew, which is a bit weird. Here we are looking at an example where the monsters actually want to path quite a bit distance to the secondary target, the twig RG. Again, the pebble RG is in the center of the yard, so that really shouldn't make any difference. Here again, I pushed the twig RG back just to see if that would change anything. Apparently it didn't. Some places in your yard that will change how monsters path, as you also saw in my other test. What's weird about this is that some places walled-in buildings doesn't work at all, and other places they're extremely effective as long as there aren't blocks in the way to the secondary target. And some places they work semi-decent. In the center of the yard, they work semi-decent, but it probably also has something to do with the size of the building. So here again, yet another example of how monsters are willing to path quite far to a secondary target. Some of the reasons that I did these tests is that I found a place where walled-in buildings were super effective. In some places they aren't. Here I moved the pebble RG away from the center, and as you can see, now what didn't work in our first little clip now works. So it really makes a huge difference where you place your buildings if you want to wall them in. Now I haven't been able to find any specific rules about this, so we really have to test it out a lot. Now we're looking at double layers, walled-in buildings. In general, they're actually less effective than a one-layer walled-in building. Why, I don't know, but it's probably something to do with line of sight, like if monsters can only see a certain amount of blocks or something like that. I don't know, it's just a theory I have. But what's all in common in these is that they certainly path far less to a secondary target. So far they haven't actually pathed one, but they do now. So here the difference is that there aren't really any blocks in the way to the secondary target, and they still chew into the pebble RG. And now we're going to look at offset blocks. Offset blocks will usually create weak spots in a wall, and therefore monsters are more likely to chew. They actually also decrease the amount of steps monsters are willing to take. Also why diagonal walls are a little weaker than straight walls. So in the first test we tried out with having the twig RG at the center back of the pebble RG, and that didn't work, so I tried moving it one block to see if it worked, and now it works. That also worked in my first couple of tests. So I was basically repeating that. Now I made a circle around the pebble RG, and there's a considerable amount of weak spots, as you can see. They will just chew everywhere to get in there. Now I tried to move the twig RG one block again to see if that worked, and surprisingly it didn't. There were just too many weak spots in that wall. And again, weak spots, just to test out a ugly wall, I guess. But again, they chewed. And now I move the Twig RG1 block, and this time they actually path, even though the weak spots are pretty weak since they're only a single block. I'm going to talk more about that in our next video, though. That was it. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.